All right, welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Strange Planet. And last week we talked generally about how AI and how its uses and how it works with, say, art and pictures and the development of it, and also how unbelievably fast it can process and do these things. But today's episode is going to be more based upon AI than how it works with the music industry. And this is already something we've been seeing coming up over the past couple of months and stuff. There's been plenty of AI voice modulators and stuff where you could almost, pretty much at this point now, you can type in some data input and you could have your favorite artist say something that you type pretty much, and it relatively does actually sound like, say, Snoop Dogg or Eminem or something. Like, it's very impressive actually how on point it really is. Someone who can talk a little bit more further into how this stuff actually does get done is Mr. Rook. So enlighten our viewers here is how this is even possible, I guess.
Well, again, like we talked about last week, there's different models that are advancing in AI, and this sort of branch of AI, it's under the machine learning branch, and it's also under the deep learning branch. It basically has just a large amount of data, which in this case, it's audio data, and depending on what you want in terms of output, whether you want voices, whether you want instruments, it doesn't matter, because all the computer is going to do is to represent different sounds as numbers. That's what it all is behind the scenes. It's just numbers.
Binary code.
Well, binary is what everything translates to eventually, but that's a different form of data. We're talking a little bit higher level than that, and it's called encoding. So
all right,
you encode like a vector, which is a long sequence of numbers that can represent any piece of data. If you can turn something into a number, then you can perform machine learning on it. You can do that with sounds now, and whether that's the human voice. I'm sure you've heard all those annoying TikTok videos. I'm sorry, but I find TikTok annoying with artificial voices that can say whatever text you want, and it's
right.
They can tell based on, they take text and they tokenize it, which means they break it apart into its component parts, the words and phrases, pieces of words, and each one of those gets turned into a vector, which is a sequence of numbers that can be identified. And then you throw it into an algorithm, and on the other side, you get an output. And depending on, different processes you can run it through, you can get, a wide variety of outputs. Now, the exciting thing about AI now is that in the music industry is that you can not only use AI to create instrumentals and different soundscapes, but you can also use it to synthesize voices. And more specifically, you can use it to, say, have Rihanna sing like
Adele or something.
Adele, right? Or you can even combine their two voices and add in a third, let's say Christina Aguilera, and take different aspects of each of their voices and combine
that's impressive,
to form a new artist, and make them sing a song, a Janet Jackson song, say.
So in other words, too, you could even say you were using this for like book narration or those ebooks or whatever. You can make a voice based on multiple voices from different actors then,
Sure.
couldn't you?
And, you can clone someone's voice, or you can create entirely new voices. Now, if anyone has Audible, or I think it's actually Alexa, which is Amazon's AI assistant, she can read you Audible books. Even though Audible has its narration. I mean, not only just Audible, but Kindle books, rather. And so she's able to recognize the words that are, and this happens so instantly. It's just because the model's already there. It's been trained. And, basically it just outputs whatever sounds that she needs to make that we understand as words.
That's interesting. Now, do you see, though, with the whole way this is being done, could you see the artist getting a little pissed off, per se, at maybe, people using his voice without his discretion for whatever, you know what I mean? Or maybe like there's like DJs like David Guetta or something, just to throw a name out there, like say they decide to use some of this stuff as like a selling point. Whereas like, say you go to the concert and then you hear, like Dr. Dre or like Eminem or something, and, you're thinking they're there and it just turns out to use that and they're not. So do you see that as like being an issue?
I mean, I think that's partially been an issue in the past, in the sense that, we've had concerts with holographic Tupacs.
Oh, yeah. And those were pretty good.
Something like that, people are never going to get to hear Tupac live again.
Yeah.
And so something like that.
But Dr. Dre made that, the
Right.
whole hologram, and he had the whole thing made. So that was under, I guess, I don't know if he has the rights or whatnot, but that was obviously under his supervision. But what I was saying before was like, without that, say a bunch of house DJs start taking people's voices or rappers' voices, and, with people that normally they probably wouldn't even work with, or that those artists would even want to work with, and they just start using it for the principle of using it. Could that, the artist be right for being pissed?
The music or the recording artist industry, with respect to licensing and rights, has become so very impersonal in terms of, okay, yeah, there's like a licensing fee if you want to use something. So one of the problems I can see is with especially a genre like rap, where, the lyrics you're saying are perhaps more important and provocative than in other genres. In other genres, it may be more about the music than the lyrics. Whereas, in rap, it's mostly about the lyrics, or at least it used to be.
Yeah.
But I digress. So if you have, a lot of sort of generated speech that's not what someone actually said, that could potentially be a problem. Because you're trying to imitate their style, and maybe, there are things they might have said or things that they might say, but they didn't actually say them. So a provocative artist like Eminem, if you're going to imitate him, he might have insults against, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, anyway.
Yeah,
but
jokes
he
for
could
days.
he could come up with new insults against new people, or an AI Eminem could. And so, real Eminem might not want beef with whatever person, although he's really not afraid of anyone. But that could be a problem in terms of whether or not this form of artistry will threaten the authenticity of pre-existing artists.
Right, because like if by taking the music or something, that's just sampling, so that's not really uncommon.
Right.
But now getting
that they've said or that they've played,
Right, but now getting the artist to say whatever you want, that's a different ball game there.
But we've also had, rap artists who've sampled rock artists who might not approve of their instruments or their voices being used in a rap song or by whatever artist. So, it's not entirely new, but I think, we're about to see a lot more of that.
Right. I mean, I can see both sides of the coin because one side you have the whole new experimental vibe where you can. It seems like the possibilities are literally endless, but there's also like a point where I feel like there's going to be a lot of people using maybe some of this stuff to help their own sales without actually the artists being okay with any of it, just kind of almost using them as a selling point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not condemning it. I'm just putting this up as like a hypothetical. What's your take on this whole situation here, Mark?
Well, I mean, it has its good and its bad points. Right now, we're like kind of in the Wild West situation of it. Like Rook was saying, there's no real litigation for this type of media sampling because it's basically sampling, but it's taking it to another level. It's getting to that point where you don't really have to sample anything the person has done, but sample like their own voice or their own musical style, and then apply that to something you're working with. It opens the doors to do crazy stuff. Songs with like Muhammad Ali and Elvis. And
Yeah, for real. You could do that. It's very customizable at this point, seems too. Like,
it seems like the goods would outweigh the bads, but at the same time, I would agree with artists that have their likeness basically used without their consent.
yeah, that's my take on it too. Like, I don't know how I would feel about that if, like, say I was some major, rapper or some, big time musician or something. And then I find out that, like, technically I was there at some EDM concert last weekend and I wasn't. Then it turns out, they had some AI impersonate me, over there for whatever reason to, I guess hype up their show, you know what I mean? So it's weird. It's a slippery slope. I kind of feel like a little bit.
It is, but that's something that the courts will definitely define. And I really think it comes down to who's using it and how are they using it.
That's true. But I think the biggest thing to come of all of this is the fact that not only can this thing literally imitate actual voices that are already out, pretty damn close to the original, but you can combine almost your own voice with elements of as many different artists or people as you want. And that is very impressive because it would be 10 times quicker to have, say, audiobooks and stuff, I would assume, to be made if someone doesn't have to literally read the book. And now you just have like AI robots do it.
Well, so as it stands now, I don't know that the AI can connote the range of emotions necessarily that a really good narrator, voice narrator for an Audible book would be able to do at the moment. But I'm sure that, within a year or two's time, that's going to be the case, that we're going to have the capability of having, AI narrators that are indistinguishable from some of the best narrators, human narrators. So,
yeah, like Morgan Freeman, say.
Right. I mean, basically, you could have Morgan Freeman read to you.
Yeah, because some of that stuff's already out.
Actually, that would be a good, I think, business model for something like Amazon. They could potentially sell people books read by, their favorite actor or
even musician, maybe. I saw one of these apps or something recently. It must have pre-packed with certain people's voices in it because they showed like Morgan Freeman reading the Bible. You like scan the page and then I guess whoever you selected is going to read it. And Snoop Dogg's name was listed. Morgan Freeman's name was on there. And there was a whole bunch of other
like
names.
You could have Snoop reading your bedtime stories or like smoke a blunt. Like, there's some form of artistry in terms of, maybe selecting certain voices that, would never sit down and read an entire audiobook.
Right. Or they couldn't pay him to do it.
Right. and delivering that content directly to a consumer. I think Amazon or, any book publisher that can do this, I think they can take advantage of maybe a business opportunity to partner with people to license their voices.
Right.
And have them, just do a few samples to get the data down so they can clone their voice, and then to have the AI generate, custom readings for people, pretty much on the fly.
And that's our show for this week, everyone. New episodes of Strange Planet will be on YouTube every Friday. Until next time, peace.